All right, I see those hands. All right, yeah. We're like, I'm just going to get it done. Sometimes, like, I don't want to delegate because I'm like, that person isn't going to do it the way I would do it, right? That's what a lot of us think. And maybe they won't. But sometimes we can't do it all. And we can't do it well. Maybe there's somebody who can do it better than we can. Then there's dependence, right? Dependence says, I can't or won't do it without you. You are absolutely necessary, and I am either incapable or I am unwilling to do it. Okay, and that's dependence. And you guys know what codependence is, right? That's kind of a form of dependency where I need you, and I need you to do this for me, or I need to do it for you because my sense of self-worth only comes from me doing that for you. And that's codependency. Unhealthy. Then there's this like in-between stage, right? That we call interdependence. Interdependence says, I'm important. It says, Cassie, you're important. Carlos, you're important. You are. And it says that we, as a whole, are important. Interdependence says that I've got skills and resources to share. You've got skills and resources to share. And all of us have skills and resources to share. And so as we share those together, we're able to do more together. Abilities, time, money, a team player focus, those kind of things. And in the Vineyard, we have a term for it. You know what it is? Everybody gets to play, right? That's exactly what we mean by that. Is that all of us are needed to do great things for God. And so this week, trying to think how to share this. We were praying for someone, and Rob said, you know what, we need to go over to this person's place and pray and do an anointing over this place. And so we did. And you know what? It made a huge impact. And he called Tiffany out, and he's like, Tiffany's really good at this. And she was amazing. And it's made a difference in this person's life. And so I'm just thankful for you guys for, number one, calling it out, saying we should do this. That like, come on, let's faith rising up, right, to do this thing. And then actually doing it and seeing like the spiritual difference that happens in that place. So it's good. So as a leader, we set the stage for either dependence, independence, or interdependence. Let's lean toward the latter. So are you a leader who feels the need to do everything? This is your evaluation here. Do you depend too much on others? Or are you able to create an atmosphere where people are operating in their giftings and have a sense of belonging? And I'll confess, I'm still working on that. Still working toward that. But let's work on it together, right? All right. Related to interdependence is an ability to make decisions. Anybody who's quick at making decisions here?
Too quick.
Okay. All right. Too quick? Anybody really, you don't like making decisions? You're like, I'm a little slower at making... You just raised your hand twice. All right? So there's different decision-making abilities, I guess you could say. Even if we involve others in decision-making, in other words, if we have this interdependence, if we take feedback, get ideas, there's still the point where, as a leader, we have to call the shots, right? Because ultimately, as a leader, we are responsible for the outcomes. We are responsible for the direction that things go. And so ultimately, we have to make a call. We have to make a decision on things. And some leaders get hung up on a decision. They freeze for fear of making the wrong decision. Okay, now for me, personally, I find that if it comes to things around my house, like where I have to fix things, I'm very hesitant because I'm not good at those kind of things. And so I tend to make no decision at all, and things just kind of don't get any better. You know what I mean? So But there are other areas where I'm more comfortable making a fast decision. Like in business, I tend to make quicker decisions because I feel more confident in that. So I've learned that sometimes taking action of some sort, actually I would say most of the time it's almost better than making no decision at all. So if you're like, I'm not sure what to do, you might think about, is it better just to make some sort of decision? Take some sort of action and see what happens. Because what I've seen is that action creates momentum, and momentum tends to energize a team and send things in the right direction. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with Alpha, as I've been getting feedback from you guys about how Alpha's going. I feel like, just saying, hey, let's just do this, And we had some bumps to get through for sure when we started. But now that we're into it, I'm really seeing this impact that how God is using Alpha in different people's lives. And that's really cool. So part of the art of leadership is taking feedback from others and filtering it to the best of our ability to focus on the most vital goals for the biggest impact. Okay, that was kind of a mouthful. But basically, as a leader, you have to know where you're going to go. You take ideas along the way, but you know what? You can't take everybody's ideas. You can't say yes to every idea, right, and make it happen. Ultimately, you're going to have to choose filter the ones that are going to lead to the best end game, okay? So this is my evaluation questions for you. How do you make decisions? Do you sit and wait? Do you take action when needed? Do you make impulsive decisions? Or do you let things marinate and then take action at the appropriate time? Which is probably the ideal way to go. And then in addition to being able to make a decision, there's a tough thing that all of us as leaders have to do. And I've noticed that the more you lead and the more responsible you are in leadership, the more this area becomes like this glaring light. I'm just thinking about this because it's in my face right now. This glaring light in your face. Okay, it's like there's more of a spotlight on you as a leader the more that you kind of rise up in leadership. So a lot of times, I remember when I was younger, I was like, man, I really want to lead things. I'm so excited to be, in a leadership position. And I see this in the scouts all the time. They're like, oh, I want to be the senior patrol leader, But then they get there and they realize, oh man, there's a lot of criticism. Anybody experienced a little bit of that? Criticism. And one thing that we have to be able to do as a leader is to be able to face criticism. Unfortunately, it just comes with the job, And we have to be able to face a certain degree of criticism. And criticism is a funny thing because we all need a little of it. No one wants it. Not all of it is beneficial, right? So we have to be able to learn how to kind of have this filter. In other words, you have to have some tough skin to be a leader. You do. And I find that our reaction to criticism is often rooted in our childhood experience. Particularly if you had somebody in your life, not just childhood, even as adults, if you've had someone in your life who was super critical, whether it was a boss or it was, especially if it was a loved one, then you may have learned some unhealthy responses to criticism that you need to unlearn. So these are responses that I've noticed. Well, let me ask you guys, what are some ways that you've seen unhealthy responses to criticism?
Just blowing off.
Yeah, so just blowing off the criticism. Say yeah, I'm not going to listen to you, right? Absolutely.
I think a lot of times criticism, well, I guess if it comes in love, is it really criticism? But I
Yeah.
Because you feel convicted by what's being said.
Yeah, right. So, and yeah, you see this kind of like, don't judge me type of attitude, right?
Offense.
Yeah. Offense. Yep.
Defensiveness.
Yeah,
Point that
defensiveness.
You can't look at yourself at all because your whole life you've been trying to.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're trying so hard to protect yourself that you don't take that inward look, right? Yeah, that's good. Anything else? Okay. So these are things that I've seen. Taking fault even when you're not responsible. Looking for fault in the person that's bringing the criticism. So immediately, rather than listening, you're like, well, you, blah, blah, blah. You just kind of turn it around. Returning criticism, kind of along the same lines. An unwillingness to be open, even to constructive criticism. Ignoring the criticism altogether. You guys said that. And taking it personally. Very good. This is especially what happens when we've been told that we are to blame for others' behaviors, right? The foundation for leadership, and especially enduring through criticism, is knowing who we are in Christ. And I hate to say it because it almost sounds cliche, right? We expect to hear that in church, but it's so true. It is foundationally true. And you have to be able to say and fundamentally believe in your heart that you are called by God, that He made you intentionally to live a life of purpose, to walk in His goodness, and to lead with heart. Not perfection, to lead with heart, right? Not having it all together, because none of us are going to be a perfect leader. It's knowing that you are first and foremost made in the image of God.
On the Alpha video this week where that guy said that was like in gangs and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he got saved and he said that it didn't, like that person, Alpha or whatever, didn't change who he was.
Mm-hmm.
They just helped him see who God had made him,
Yeah.
who he really was.
That's good.
Yeah.
That was really good. When you get to that place like this guy did, like at your core, that you are His, then criticism has a different effect than if you're missing the true picture of your value and worth, right? And, I was thinking about world leaders. I already kind of talked about President Trump, but you've seen that in other world leaders too, right? Like, even our top leaders around the world are not impervious to a lack of self-confidence or to narcissism. They go to the extremes just like everybody else. And when we walk in extremes rather than this confidence that we have in God, we are more likely to reach for the wrong bucket. Do you remember talking about that last week? So what happens is if we're in this mode of defensiveness or we're responding out of like Cheryl was talking about, defensiveness, then we reach for the oil bucket to put out this fire of criticism rather than the water bucket. And that's not where we want to go, right? Okay, so here are some ways to respond to criticism. First, you have to determine whether or not the criticism is valid. Okay? And to do that, you have to consider the source. You have to look at where did the criticism come from? Who did it come from? Is this somebody that's trustworthy, that has my best interest in mind, that has the group's best interest in mind? Right? Do they have a critical spirit where they see most things negatively and tend to complain to others? Do they often talk about others negatively? Okay? If this person is coming to you with criticism, then you better be pretty quick to brush it off. You're going to want to be. All right? Did they save it all up, or did they ease into it? If you know that someone is trustworthy and has others' best interest in mind, then you can be very open to the criticism that they bring, because it's probably going to be that healthy and constructive. Recently, I read about a pastor. He got a letter